I'd like to call to order the regular Town Commission meeting of April the 9th, 2024. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first item of business this evening is the ceremonial swearing in of our new Commissioner, Vinnie Burrill. Town Clerk will go ahead and administer the oath of office.
Raise your right hand and respond with "I will" or "I do." Do you solemnly swear that you support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and the state of Florida, and that you're duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state and the Sewall Point Town Code, and that you will faithfully perform the duties of the Town of Sewall Point Commissioner for the Town of Sewall Point, Florida, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations.
And now we'll go ahead and call the roll.
Yes, sign his
Okay.
oath of office first.
That didn't take long.
Mayor Tompeck,
Here.
Vice Mayor Fender,
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Here.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell.
Okay, and with that, we'll going to have a brief 10-minute recess to re-welcome Mr. Burrill back to the commission. So we're recessed for 10 minutes, and there's some refreshments in the other room.
He sat back up here, now he's got to get back up.
go ahead and resume our meeting. We have no proclamations or presentations this evening. We do have two public comments. Is that all we have, April?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First one is Bonnie Flint.
Good evening, Bonnie Flint, Palmetto Drive. Once again, you don't have to listen to me.
We love listening.
Well, thank you. But I would like to turn over my time to my associate Frank, who we've been discussing a number of issues here, and he needs another minute or two. So hopefully you can hear us. Thank you.
Sorry for the tag team, but, you know, I take more than 3 minutes. I apologize for that. But so Mayor Tompeck, Vice Mayor Kurzman, Commissioner Brill, Commissioner Fender, and Commissioner Mayfield. An email was sent out by the town to the residents making several assertions. Number one, persons are unknown or utilizing public information. God forbid that should happen. But let me clarify this statement. An email was sent out by Forever Sewell's Point, which is a citizens group dedicated to good government, which depends on a well-informed citizenry that monitors actions of individuals holding office. Our purpose is to inform members of the Sewell's Point community about what's going on at Town Hall. Not everyone has time to attend the meetings, where major decisions are made that affect us all. So I am the registered agent and the secretary of an organization that is a not-for-profit 501c4 called Forever Sewell's Point. And yes, we are using public information from the town, the DEP, and Martin County. Everything on our website is factual, and you're welcome to go to Sewell's Point info, sewellspoint.info. Also, the email that went out from the town, the assertion was made that this was to mislead the community with non-factual information. Which of these statements are not grounded in fact? When your septic system fails, you'll be required to hook up to the water sewer line and have a grinder system installed on your property. Florida Statute 381, and the website is referenced, requires you to connect to a sewer line if it's available. Martin County Utilities will own the sewer system, and you will be billed by them when you connect. That's part of the interlocal agreement that was passed here. The connection charge has not been determined, but it's been estimated in the CapTech report to run between $8,000 and $12,000 a household. And the septic tanks will be crushed and abandoned. You can find that in the CapTech report. According to the rates published by Martin County Utilities, the minimum monthly bill effective June 1, 2023 was $19.73 as a consumption charge of $4.82 and a service availability charge of $15.63 for a total of $40.18 per month. Rates were increased on June by 2.5% in June of 2023. That's on the Martin County Utilities website. The Phase 1 grant application stated, an initial installation will provide the first 148 homes with access to sewer. A combination of conventional vacuum, sewer, gravity, and grinder system will be implemented to achieve hookup in the Martin County owned and maintained utility. This application was approved by the commission, you all who are sitting there this evening, and it was signed by the town manager. Factual statement. You all approved it, you signed it. In order to provide sewer to the entire South Sewell's Point area, 706 homes, it will require the town to spend an estimated $29,548,900 and will require a mandatory special assessment on all residents of South Sewell's Point to cover the difference in cost needed to reach the required 50-50 match unless other means of making up the difference is found. Page 33 of the CapTech report, which you all received and endorsed. And then the town of Sewell's Point Plan for Resiliency, Sustainability, and Clean Water budget year 2021 to 2022 estimated that $7.8 million would be needed from 708 property owners, which equates to $11,000 per household. This is in addition to the connection charge of between 8 and 12. That's a public document. It's on our website, or the town's website. And also, there are less costly options to prevent an assessment. As you remember, back in the summertime, presented a PowerPoint presentation to you all about Bill 1378 that was signed by the governor on the 1st of July. So let's review some disinformation put out by the town. When it was pointed out to the commissioners in the meeting that there were errors in grant requests, a comment was made to pull the application back and correct the errors, but you all felt it would look bad, so that wasn't done. And you can pick that up on YouTube. Last month, I stood up here and I pointed out other errors in grant requests. The claim that 75% of residents approve of sewers is not factual. The town has no documents to support this assertion, yet it's in the grant request documents that go out. The basis of the CapTech report was a more thorough study done by Giffords-Webster. CapTech was reimbursed for paying Giffords-Webster for the work product, yet the town denies that the report exists and when a FOIA request was made to the town. A grant application claiming that Sewell's Point was named the area in Martin County's most vulnerable to flooding is not factual. Also, claiming that the Indian River Lagoon adjacent to Sewell's Point is impaired isn't based on fact. Interactive Florida Department of Environmental Protection maps show water bodies that are impaired. They're either N and a B map and have a high FDP total maximum daily load of nutrients which require mandated remediation. The Indian River Lagoon, where we are, South Indian River Lagoon, falls into none of those categories. The only thing that applies is the B map for the St. Lucie estuary, which is the western part of our community. These false claims have been pointed out to the commissioners, town management, and CapTech, yet they persist. And yet we, the citizens, are accused of misleading the community with non-factual information? I don't think so. The email blast was sent out by the staff of the town of Sewell's Point, and a retraction is due. Otherwise, these statements are libel, which is defined as the publication of false information that damaged someone's reputation. Libel refers to specific facts that can be proved untrue, and that is the case here. The town put out a libelous statement, and a retraction is in order. Thank you. Any questions?
No, thank you. Okay, are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Fender,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck.
Yes. That brings us up to the consent agenda. Any discussion or a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move as presided for the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fender.
Sure.
Okay, we don't have any public hearings scheduled for first or second reading. We have no resolutions, so that brings us down to item 11, old business. Supervisor of Elections, cost of referendum. Mr. Daniels, would you introduce the item, please?
Yes, at our discussion last meeting, it was mentioned that there was a $15,000, possible $15,000 fee for doing the charter referendum. I thought the estimate was about $1,500. I was wrong, it's $1,930. We estimated about $500 for advertising costs, and the town attorney's expense, according to Glenn, would be approximately $2,000, but if you went the ordinance route, the $2,000 would be probably spent in developing the ordinances and going through the process for those. So either way, it's a wash. So I'm just looking forward for direction from the commission. If you really have three choices. You have one to do ordinance changes instead of the charter change the charter change is the second option, and the third option is do nothing.
Any comments? Discussion? Commissioner Kurzman.
Yeah, I'd like to do the ballot mailing. That's what I think our council suggested to us.
I don't think so, no. They just included that in their prices. I think if you're going to do a referendum to the charter, because it takes 60% vote, I think most people would like to vote on it and have an official vote instead of a mail-in ballot. But
Whatever-
that's your decision.
No,
if
no,
you
whatever
want.
council suggested, I'm going to go with.
On
Yeah,
which
whatever
council
council.
are you talking about? Our legal counsel?
Yeah, our legal
I-
counsel.
I was under the impression he was talking about the actual election, where, the plan was to have it as part of the November election, but, maybe, Susan knows something different, but I think that's kind of what Glenn's thought process was. But when we got the prices, they do have a mail-in ballot option, and I guess if this commission decides that they want to do the mail-in ballot, they can. I just think it's, if you really want to get everybody's feedback from it, doing an actual election is, in my opinion, it's a better way of making sure that everybody has a voice.
I'm sorry, you're correct. The precinct-based election. Yeah,
Correct.
that's correct, yeah.
Okay.
I'll go that direction. Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, Town Manager, I had meant to ask you this before, and I didn't get a chance to. There are some emails about a business board or something, where at the prior meeting, we're under the impression we are going to just omit that thing, or that would be the change, but then there was some discussion that it was supposed to stay. Can you clarify that, please?
Sure. The issue of the planning board, which is in our charter, came up, and the members of the committee had discussed it. When I gave the report, I mentioned that, I failed to mention that discussion came in about the planning board. But what the end of the discussion was that if you all decide that you need a planning board, you can do an ad hoc committee and appoint somebody similar to what we did with the Charter Review Committee. It was an ad hoc committee that you all authorized. So that was kind of the discussion point. But there is a provision in the charter for a planning committee. And obviously, we don't have a lot of development that's going on, but there might be an opportunity where you might need a committee to review some of the items before you take action. But if you decide that you're going to do the referendum through the Supervisor of Elections office, I would suggest that we remove that provision for the planning committee, although we just haven't had one all these years anyhow, but, and just, have as set as your policy or set under ordinance that you'll just set an ad hoc committee if you need one.
So the recommendation didn't change for that? Remember, so the recommendation stayed the same?
The recommendation stayed the same.
Okay.
The only difference is if we are going to move forward on a charter referendum, I think you just make the charter clearer that you remove the planning commission as being a chartered board.
Commissioner Burrell.
Well, we know from the last time I was at the podium, I'm for a referendum. I think the residents should have a say in this. After all, it's probably about between 5 and 10 years before the next one. So I would say we should take it up with the residents, let them look at it.
Vice Mayor Fender.
In general, I'm always in favor of giving the people a voice, so I'm in favor of the referendum, but do we have draft wording on what this is?
Well,
What it will
if you vote on it today, that's the next step that Susan and Glenn will have, and I think we'll have that language for you. I think Glenn was trying to get it for the next meeting.
All right.
Because you do have to vote and approve on the language, but our town attorneys will look at it and get with the supervisor of election, because there's certain restrictions. It can only be so many words, and it has to fit their guidelines and their legal review. So we'll get all that done in time for your next meeting.
Go ahead.
So based on that, I just sort of have a chicken and egg sort of question. If if we vote today to do the referendum and not happy with the process that you just described that produces what will appear on the ballot, is there any way to,
And you do a motion to reconsider?
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I'm for the referendum also, and just, like we said at the last meeting, following what the committee advised, whatever the committee advised as a whole, I think was what we agreed last time, so.
Okay, I'm going to be a lone wolf here. I'm not sure that the changes here come up to the point of being a referendum issue, but I really don't have any objection to it, to be honest with you. I think it would be handled by ordinance just as easily. But if that's what the commission wants, I won't vote against it. So do we have a motion or any more discussion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we vote on going for referendum.
I'll second.
Okay, please call the roll.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell?
Yes,
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fender?
Yes.
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes.
You're supposed to say no.
Well, I could. Okay, the next item is 11B, Snyder Marketing Communications Campaign. This was an item that came up for a vote and discussion at the last meeting. And I think, Vice Mayor Fender, you had a question about how how this is going to be funded, and that's why it's on the agenda today.
Yes.
Mr. Daniels?
The document that's in your packet, I'm not sure what page the official packet is, but we're following along with.
46.
I'm sorry?
46.
Page 46.
46. We outline where we're going to have some budget savings in, I guess, like 6 different items. So that's where we're planning on getting the funding for paying the overage for the communications plan. Not the plan, I'm sorry, for the management of the communications.
So this is kind of we've all handled budgets before, and it's part of the norm to be shuffling things around to handle unforeseen items as opposed to items where we're running a little under budget, so not very unusual situation. Commissioner Brill?
yeah, I agree with that, but the only question that I have is, once you get this anticipated savings and you go over that on your, what you're taking the money from, how are you going to pay for the legal, for instance, for the code enforcement board, for the police union matters? How are you going to pay that back if you go over?
Well, there are these are dollars that we feel we are not going to use during the year. So there's other monies in those accounts that are going to handle the expenses that'll take us through the rest of the year.
I'm only concerned about the ones that say professional services. What do you mean by professional services?
Those are services of our planner, and I think that's it, because the legal expenses are broken out, so primarily the planner, and I'm not sure if our, Mariah, our grants, are they come out of that account too? So our grant and lobbyist expenses come out of that account. So Mariah's already accounted for those for the rest of the budget year.
Yes, and the professional service line, the 512, that does include, there was money for the grant writer and lobbyist. There was also money for a water plan to be done, and then there was $20,000 originally budgeted for the communications plan. So that 11,000 is what, when I say remaining for the communications plan.
So you did away with the grant writer, and we don't have them anymore?
No, we do. So, yeah, this 11,000 just is toward the 20,000 that was budgeted for her,
Okay.
or for the
I
plan.
just don't want to see you not be able to pay those things back if you need to. But where are you going to get the money from? You know, it's like $36,500, and where are you going to get it from if you need it?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? I don't think we need any kind of a vote on this one, so If everybody's satisfied, we can move on to new business, item 12A, restriction or removal of trees on Saturday. Commissioner Kurzman, you've got the ball.
Yes, what's happened, most of the trees we found that are cut down, usually you have certain tree services that will solicit people. And a lot of times solicitations will happen on Saturdays when the town hall's closed, and they'll wind up going in, and that's when we've had most of our oaks, banyans, and some even our heritage trees have been cut down on Saturdays. What I'd like to see here forward is to prohibit tree cutting on Saturdays. We should make an exception, they would have to post, just like any building permit has to be posted on the front lawn for the whole world to see that they did have a permit to cut that tree down. If there's no permit visible, it means that there is no permit and they're cutting down a tree illegally. And this will help stop it. At least deter people from doing this, and it will also let the neighbors know somebody's doing something they're not supposed to do. We've had so many trees illegally cut down over the last few years, and we are a tree city, and this is part of protecting what we have, which is, it's to the property values here. The only other part of Martin County that really has this type of trees in a residential area is Jupiter Island. Otherwise, you're going to look like a lot of these other neighborhoods with 2 palm trees on a front lawn, and that'll be the end of it. And we can't lose the oaks that we have and the banyans. And that's why I feel this is very important to try and do something to prohibit tree cutting on Saturdays. That'll be a good start.
And you're suggesting that that includes people that have permits to cut trees?
They got to post a permit, if they have the permit. It has to be posted on the front, just like you would a building permit if they're going to cut a tree. So this way everybody could see that it is somebody that's authorized to cut a tree. If you have to get permits to do work in your house and it's posted, why not for a tree? And at least you know what's going on. This'll,
Can they do this on a Saturday?
what do you mean?
Vice Mayor, your mic.
I'm just clarifying your proposal. I thought it started with no tree cutting on Saturdays.
There should be no tree cut. That's what I'd like.
Even,
that's what
and I'm just trying to clarify, even with the posted permit you just described, there's still no tree cutting on Saturday?
With the postal permit, that's the way that we could actually allow it to happen on a Saturday, would be with a posted permit. But without a posted permit, you can't cut trees on a Saturday.
And are residents required to have a posted permit during the week if they're cutting a tree?
That's something we could talk about. Yeah, I feel they should be if you're cutting
Jack,
an
are
oak.
they required to? Okay. They're
Yeah.
not required to post a permit if they have a permit to cut a tree? Okay.
Can we ask for a permit, though, to be posted if they're going to cut a tree? That's what I'm talking about. I don't see what the big deal is. It's going to get rid of all the people, we could at least see who's doing this without a permit. That's the idea.
I think an issue that we have to look at is the fact that, again, getting back to the state law, we're not allowed to require a permit for all types of tree removal from private property. So I'm referring to section 163.045 that was passed, I think, in '22. That says a local government may not require a notice, application, approval, permit, fee, or mitigation for the pruning, trimming, or removal of a tree on residential property if the property owner possesses documentation from an arborist. And then it goes on, we've talked about this before, certifying that the tree needs to be removed. So it's not so simple as everybody has to have a permit and we're just requiring to post the required permit, because in some instances, they're not required to have a permit. So I'm not sure how, we'd have to think about how that requirement could work in that context. basically, I've found one court decision interpreting this that says that, you know, people who meet those criteria, who can get that documentation from an arborist, they're not even required to tell us beforehand. They're just required, if we go up and ask, to show us the documentation. But we're gonna run into an issue with that law for people who meet those criteria.
There's
Vice
no-
Mayor Fender, I know you want to say something.
I haven't pressed my button.
Okay, are there any other comments?
I'd like to see if there's anything, any loophole or something that council could look into on this to see if we could go through and do this and enforce it.
I think I would suggest that we try to look for a different way to get to the place you want to get to, because anything that dealing with a permit requirement is going to run us into issues with the state. But maybe there's another way to do it.
If you could think of anything, help me.
I will do my best.
And that goes for everybody. If somebody could think of a way we could do this.
Do you accept any public comment?
You want a card? Sure.
I have a comment on that.
You have a card? If you want to speak,
Just fill out a card.
Just for the call, sorry. Just on this issue though, I just have it's a 2-sentence idea.
okay. I'm sorry.
I'm like, who's there?
It's just really, hi, I'm Yara Bashur. Good evening. I'm here on another matter, but with regard to the trees, I'm rather doing restrictions or punishments. I always think if there's any way to do an incentive, what can you give a property owner an incentive to do something to preserve their trees? So maybe looking at the opposite side of the coin. That's it, you know, whether it's, I don't know, something. That's it. That's all I was thinking. Providing some kind of incentive for people to want to keep their trees. I don't know if it's monetary or benefit or a break somehow. So
Open
that's-
to any and all ideas.
I'm sorry?
Open to any.
So I'll do a little more thinking, but what I thought of, it was the opposite. Let's think of an incentive. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Kraft, Fort Delano. Just a quick thought as well. There's invasive trees that you don't require a permit for that could be very large. You start cutting one of those down. I've tried to get a permit to take down a carrot wood, and I was turned away and said, no, you don't get a permit to take down a carrot wood. But I could picture being out there, taking one down and having the neighborhood pretty much up in arms that I'm taking a big tree down. So just a thought.
I also think it's key that with design, you have
State
to,
your name for the record.
Stephen Polachek, that with the design of these homes on these lots, you know, there's a lot of history on each of these lots, whether it's a renovation or a new home. I think you got to really set the expectation that part of the design process is managing how your house sits, you know, in position with things like big trees. And I think you got to take that step. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just got my button there.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Commissioner Brill.
First of all, I think it would be almost impossible to enforce. I don't see how you can enforce any of that when the state says you can't do it. That's going to be a real issue. And who's going to enforce it? Okay, that's the other issue. We're going to have somebody ride around looking to listen for chainsaws and see if they have a permit. I mean, I just don't know how you would do that.
Yeah, we have a lot of people.
And also, I think it's infringing on the property owners as well. I think they should have the right to cut down certain trees. Of course, not the ones that are protected, but, you know, to stop it and to say to people, you can't cut trees on Saturday, I don't think that's the right thing to do.
I'd like to make a comment, please.
Last one.
My name is Cynthia Lucas. I live at 1 Mandalay Road. Yeah, I'm concerned about the trees too, but I think the best way to handle it is in the neighborhood. We encourage people on our street that if they need help with gardening or they want a tree, you know, we love the trees, we'll help maybe cut them down. My friend is an arborist. He comes around and helps us and trims the trees. So I think it's a better thing to encourage the neighborhood and people being neighborly to each other, because we all want to make our houses look beautiful, because we're very lucky to live here in Sewell's Point. I don't think this is an issue that should be a law or an ordinance. This is private property. That's what we have in the Constitution. Let's talk about private property. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I think, my fellow commissioners, you received a note from Susan Krepitz this week. Did you see that? Some pretty interesting information in there. I thought that as maybe as a separate issue, we could, you know, she made some mention about, you know, creating a significant tree designation and documentation requirements for removal and cutting projects, and you might want to look at that. I think this is, you know, we're concerned about some of the very, very special trees here in Sewell's Point. We have a lot of them. We might want to think about how we could do that as a citizens committee or something like that. I think would be worthwhile to look at. Commissioner Mayfield?
Yeah, I just thought of this since we were talking about the communications plan and we're spending all this money in the communications plan. She could communicate about the great trees we have. I mean, I don't know about this designation of trees, if it's something super official or if it's just trees that look cool and are old, you know? So if it's not anything super official, you could just name it something that the town names it, and then the communications plan might be able to cover some of that goodwill communicating about our trees.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just not to rehash, though, the fact that we do still have to follow the state law, you know, when it comes to, you know, having an arborist report, and we've had that happen already where, you know, it's a great tree, but, you know, it supposedly has fungus, and there's an arborist report, and, you know, so, you know, we're caught in a catch-22. So, that's one thing we have to make sure that if you do a citizens group, that they understand the legal boundaries that we have to work within.
All right, I think that's, is there anything else on that issue anybody wants to add? If not, we'll move on to 12B, restriction of parking on town streets prior to 8 a.m. Commissioner Kurzman.
You know, it's not quite like that. In other words, what's happening is we have construction vehicles. You're not supposed to work here till 8 in the morning. That's the way the town rules have been set up. And what's happening, the construction people are getting here 6:30, 7 in the morning, and they're sitting out in their trucks, talking, have the radio going. People are looking for peace and quiet, and they're not getting it. And especially, I know the folks along River Road around the Mandalay area, it's a whole, there are times you go along there, and it's, I'm not exaggerating, probably over 1/10 of a mile long of nothing but trucks, and our building inspector will verify that. It's just a long line of nothing but pickups and construction vehicles, and they start piling in as early as 6:30, and I was thinking of something to possibly, and you don't want to take anything away from the people that live here. Once again, those are the homeowners, and they have a right to park in the street at 6 a.m., and they should continue to do such. So that should not affect them. If you're a Sewell's Point resident, and most of us do have the Sewell's Point stickers on our cars, they could park out there starting at 6 a.m., as our town rules allow them to. But the construction vehicles should not be out there prior to 8 o'clock, and that's when what's happening is a lot of them are sneaking into the house prior to 8 o'clock, and they're sitting there banging in the house. And they're not supposed to start till 8. So by doing this, we would eliminate, you know, just people having peace of life. The best way to put it, over on the corner of River Road and Mandalay, those projects have been going on now for about 4 years. And to live there and to have lived through that, it doesn't affect me personally, but it's affected people I know, and it's taken away from the quality of life over there.
Ms. James, have we had any complaints from residents? Jack, have you heard anything, or?
I've just heard of the complaints through Commissioner Kurzman, but the chief, have you gotten any complaints on cars being there early and disturbing the peace?
So just a matter of clarification, there's two different issues that you're actually talking about here. One is hours of construction, the other is a parking violation. They are completely separate laws. You're not allowed to do work except for between 8 and 5, Monday through Saturday. It's a parking violation if, say, you have, Jimmy John's Construction Company written on the side of your pickup truck and it's parked on a job site before 8 a.m. If you're in a car and you're sitting there eating your egg sandwich on the job site, it's not a violation. It's not a parking violation. It's a standard passenger automobile. There's nothing unlawful about that. My suggestion would be to encourage residents at 6:30 in the morning, if there's a noise violation, they should call and complain, and we'll send an officer down there. The officers do have a lot of tasks in the morning, but I can tell you, I personally am here usually driving around at 7 o'clock in the morning. I've never caught anyone at 6:30, that's for sure. Whether or not you consider it to be a bad thing, if someone has a car parked at a job site and they're sitting inside the house, if that's problematic for the commission and you pass a law, we'll certainly enforce that law. As far as parking at job sites, there are times some of these job sites have a lot of workers there. We make sure that the roads are passable, that a fire truck or an ambulance can drive down them at all times. Try to tell them pick one side of the street or the other. They can't have both. And that's how we address those issues. It's unfortunate that there are two very large homes that were built there at the corner of Mandalay and South River Road. Extraordinarily large homes require a tremendous number of workers to build them. And especially towards the end, a lot of those finished type work, very time laborious, equipment, things of that nature. So that would be my suggestion, is to encourage people to call when there's a problem, and we're happy to send someone down and address it.
Thank you, Chief.
Certainly.
Okay, any other comments? It doesn't sound like the commission would like to change the restrictions, the parking restrictions at all. Am I reading that correctly, or?
I think it goes, I don't think it'd be, somebody wants to comment it, why not?
He's running the meeting.
You're really supposed to fill out comment cards before the meeting, okay? Right, and maybe that was a mistake. 2 minutes, Frank.
I don't need 2 minutes. The quick comment is, occasionally, the sewer crew that's working on South Sewell, occasionally the sewer crew that's working on South Sewell's Point Road gets started before 8 a.m.
Okay. I'm sorry, Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, as far as the restriction of parking on town streets before 8, that one I think is not best idea. People are busy, they got a lot going on, and there are people that come to help out at a home before, like if you get childcare and someone parks on the road and they're coming at 6 a.m. So it's just, I think it would be hard to enforce, and it would end up causing more harm than good and cost money. And so I appreciate the intent behind it. I just don't think it's a very practical, I think it will do more harm than good. When really, I think it's more of a code enforcement issue with our current codes, is kind of how I feel the issue is.
Mr. Daniels, if you could, check with Jack and the chief and let us know if there's any complaints or whatever. If there's a lot of complaints, we can certainly revisit the subject again.
They're just asking for peace and quiet, that's all they want. And, if we could keep people away from there before 8, that's what they want.
Isn't there something about commercial vehicles, if they have signs on them and things like that?
I think that's what Chief Tina was just talking about,
right.
yeah. So it would just be
If they have a sign on the truck, they're not supposed to be there before 8 o'clock.
Right.
I think the problem that Commissioner Kurzman's talking about, though, are the workers that just drive up in their car. They don't have a place to park, so they park in the street, but they don't have any markings on it that would lead you to believe it's a commercial vehicle. So without having some type of commercial standing, I guess, for lack of a better term, they can't take action the way the ordinance is written on that parking violation.
So I have seen in other jurisdictions, and I don't know whether that would really be responsive to what you're talking about at all, but that actually restricts parking for construction to be on site, so they can't park on the street out near the construction site or something. I don't know if that's helpful or not. I've also seen restrictions that say explicitly that the workers cannot arrive on the site. The example I'm thinking of is more than 30 minutes before the start time. So I didn't realize apparently we interpret the start time as they can't arrive on site before the start time. I don't know if that's correct. So we already essentially have that type of provision, but that's what I've seen in other town codes in that regard.
Just since we're talking about the topic, and you asked, has there been complaints? There has actually been some social media chatter this week about this topic, and the spin was, why aren't we enforcing the 8 a.m. rule? And you know, I tried to counter and saying we do enforce it, and I don't know how much farther it goes in that. I think our rules are pretty clear, and people shouldn't work before 8, and I think the chief does a great job, and I thought she explained it very well on how they enforce it. Also explained that if there is an issue, as Chief said, to go ahead and report it, and we would enforce it even farther. So anyway, to your point of there actually has been some complaints.
The other item I just wanted to throw out, and I understand that, you know, there is frustration when you have construction projects that last multiple years, and there are other jurisdictions that I know of, one of them in Palm Beach County, that put an expiration date on building permits for residential homes. And, you know, so that's something that, you know, you can, you know, so far is enforceable, but again, the state legislature has been taking away certain tools that building departments have to you know, restrict items. So, but again, that's just, I'm throwing that out to just put in the back of your mind, and if you kick it around and there's something you want me to research on it, I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay, any other discussion?
Yeah, well, Bob, if you could look into like doing something where it's to cut it to 2 years to build a house, that would be significant. If you look into that, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, they built the Empire State Building in a year and a half. They ought to be able to build a house in Sewell's Point in 2, right?
They're too
Well-
busy sitting in their cars eating.
Well, we do have to keep in mind though too, and I was just thinking about this, it could have the reverse effect, so they're gonna bring more people in so they can get the job done sooner. So I don't know, but I'll definitely look into it.
Okay, next item is 12C, 1 Fieldway Drive foreclosure action.
Yes.
Mr. Daniels.
Yes, yeah, it's an unfortunate topic when we run into individuals that are kind of ignoring any type of efforts to come into compliance. And this was a case, the last communication was last June with the party, but I am pleased to announce they did respond, and we did have a meeting, Jack and I, with them on Friday. Friday, was it, Jack? Monday, sorry, they all run in together. On Monday, and again, I'm cautious because Jack has had meetings with them, you know, probably at least 5 or 6 that I know of. And, you know, I know we've reached out to them or attempted to reach out to them to come into compliance. The house is 1 Fieldway Drive, and it's had shutters up, which there isn't an ordinance against having your shutters up year-round. They do it for security because, you know, nobody's living in the house. But the house is in disrepair. Based on our inspection, they have a front wall that needs to be pressure cleaned and repainted. The lawn has soil coming through it, and the sand is actually getting into the curbing and the gutters, and eventually into our storm system that's in India Lucy. The driveway is black, and it's not supposed to be black. It's a concrete driveway. The trees need to be trimmed back, some in the front and on the side. There's exposed electrical wires along the eave in the front. It looks like it's an extension cable, but it's kind of hard to tell. And there's vines growing on the east wall. The screening in the back has gotten vegetative growth over the top part of the screen to the extent one of the panels, the big panels, is fallen down, and you have all dead leaves that are on the pool deck. And then there's actually a palm tree that's growing out of another panel, so it's probably about a 3 or 4 foot palm tree that's growing in the midair. But and then there's they have a fireplace where the top part of it is all rusted, and the house is just really in disrepair where it needs painting and so forth. And these have been issues that Jack has dealt with the owners. So that's why I wanted to bring it forward with you tonight, because the first step is getting your authority to move forward. And I've been in contact with Glenn and with Susan, and I believe they're in the process of doing a lien search to see if there are any other liens other than ours that's on the property. The home, the father passed away back in 2020, and he was the last remaining one. The daughter is the trustee for the home. The home is in a trust. She's the only heir. So what I'd like to do tonight, in lieu of us meeting with them just on Monday, I'd still like to have your authority to go forward, and I'm going to give it 2 to 3 weeks and see if they keep the communication up with me. Again, I put the emphasis on them to communicate with us and when they're going to be out there and what they're getting done. But it is a tremendous effort is what it's going to take to bring the house into shape. And they do want to sell the house eventually. So, they are motivated to do that, but it just seems like all good intentions kind of fall short, and they don't follow through. So I'd still like to have the ability to move forward. I have no problem coming back to you all, but I'd like to at least do the research, the legal research that we need to do. So if we do need to ultimately file something, which I'd rather them come into compliance, and then we can talk about mitigating the fine, which the last sheet I think was $94,500. So on the fines.
I'm sorry, you said you did meet with them,
We met with them on Monday.
and what were the results of that meeting?
Well, they basically, we walked through the property. They wanted to have a current list of all the things that they had to do, which I just read out to you as all the things that they know about that they have to do, which Jack has gone through that process with them before, but we've done it again. And hopefully, I told them, you need to get, take and come up with a game plan, and I gave them 2 to 3 weeks to do that. So I just want to make sure that we still have a process going, so they don't say, well, okay, well, that we saved our time and effort and walk away again, because that didn't work before with all the notices we gave them and everything else.
Mr. Brill?
Do they know that you're willing to mitigate the fines?
Well, I can't mitigate them, but I can come back to you all with a recommendation for the mitigation, yes. But the first thing with any code enforcement cases, they have to come into compliance. Then after they come into compliance, then that's when the fines stop running, and then we can talk about the mitigation. But yes, they know, and that's something that they could even work out with different service providers for real estate services and everything else to try to, have that lien release before they sell the property. Thank you.
Hate to be the person who says, yeah, let's take the house away.
That's not my intent.
I know.
And, and I know that's not the commission's intent. Unfortunately, some people, need that pressure to make sure that they can get things done.
And this has been going on for almost a year, right?
Actually, since I started, so it's almost 2 years. And before that, I think, Jack had a case on it probably 3 years ago. is when it started, but nothing's really been done with the property since her father died. And he didn't do, according to her, he didn't do much to the property because he was sick. So
I think it's important that, we handle all these cases, even though each one of them is unique to a certain extent. It's important that we handle them consistently. And we have at least one other case that I'm aware of that we're doing the same thing, and I think it would be inconsistent if we didn't go ahead and authorize a foreclosure action. I don't like the idea either, but we're racking up fines pretty quickly here, and apparently it's not going to stop in the near future. Commissioner Mayfield?
I agree with the mayor. Communicate as best you can, give them the chances, like I think we did on the other case, and if it just keeps not happening, then proceed as you see fit with the foreclosure.
Any other comments? Can you get a motion?
I make a motion that we authorize a foreclosure action through the town attorney's office. Is that what it says?
Second?
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Kurzman?
No.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell?
No.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fender?
Yes.
And again, for the record, I'm going to be back here before we file the case. We're doing all the investigative side, and then if they don't comply, I'll be back here with you before we actually file the action in court.
Thank you. We're down to item 13A, Capital Improvement Project Update. Mr. Capra.
Good evening, Commissioners. Joe Capper for the record, Town Engineer. I've just kind of put together a few items on the status of the projects, just to make sure everybody knows we are working on them, and they're moving along fairly well. We have to wait on certain things. As you know, most of our projects are depending on a lot of grant money, and in doing that, we have to keep track of the various grants and how we handle each of the items within the grant. So, first item, South Sewell Point Road, Phase 1. Project is complete, as you all know. However, what normally happens is we go through various scenarios of talking to the grant agencies afterwards, and they've given us, we have to finally get the money back from them. Because as you know, all these grant programs are reimbursable. So we spend the money, we spend all your hard-earned money, all your tax money, and then we have to go grab the money, get the money back from them. So we do have a few outstanding grant funds that are coming back from South Sewell Point Road Phase 1. The next project, I'll just go in order, Phase 2, and that is basically from Sewell's Meadows to Pineapple Lane. That project, as you know, we have been working on the design, which that means we've been gathering field data, survey information, geotechnical information. One of the things we have to do is a historical tribal investigation of the area. So that's ongoing. We're expecting permits and design to be completed somewhere around September of this year. And we also have been pursuing easements. On every one of these projects, we have needed to get some sort of easements one way or the other. Either temporary easements so that we can get, touch the properties, the private properties, or a permanent easement if we need to put something out there in the field. Anyways, that's the design period. We also will be working with Martin County Utilities on water main improvements in the same area, and they will let us know what lines that they want replaced. In the past, they've been paying for those items. I've kind of also outlined the various grants we currently have, and in Phase 2, we have a DOT state appropriation grant. It's about $1 million, and we are working through the DOT for that appropriation grant. We also have a FEMA HMGP grant. We have a DEP resiliency grant. Both of those are for raising the road, improving the roadway, improving the drainage. As all of you know, we also have a DEP septic to sewer resiliency grant for all of South Sewell's Point. And in the area Phase 2, we will be putting in some low-pressure force main items also, and those are ongoing as far as the design. The work on both of these, on all these programs entails getting survey works and field data. So to make a long story short, our current predicted time to start the bidding is expected in October or November of 2024, and we hope to go to construction in January of 2025, and that'll probably take most of the year. And I tell you these projected timeframes because it's always a matter of when the grant agencies give us the money they have, plus we've been asking for more money from them. So we maybe have a first phase of a grant, and then we ask for additional money too. So that one there, that project there, of course, we're trying to put that in line for the, not the next one that will be built, but that's the one we're working on. I kind of gave Bob a summary before the meeting, so I guess that's what he's passing out, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think the project most of you are kind of waiting on is the South Sewell's Point Road Phase 3 project. That's from Pineapple Lane to Ridgeland Drive. That's the next project that is expected to go under construction.
Any way to get this up on the screen?
I don't have it electronically.
You didn't,
I can see if I got it in.
it would have come up before the meeting.
Is that the 518 one?
Yep, that's, should be that one right there.
Can you make it a little smaller?
Right in the middle top is a plus sign. See it? Oh. A little bit more.
Can you make that bigger?
You just scroll it with your mouse. So you can- Right in the middle top is a plus sign. You see it?
Yes.
Hammer on that a bunch of times. So it's almost page width. Yeah. Or the page width button. Right next to that. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
So this is the one I just explained. Basically, you can see, talks about the design and permitting phases, different, where you see Martin County Utilities and DOT and FEMA and all that. Those are the grants that we currently have underway, and they're in one phase or another of either contracts being signed, or basically we know we're getting money from them, but we have to wait for the contracts and so forth to be put in order. And then the last item tells you tells you on the top of the screen the expected bidding time for that project, and then the construction period. Any questions on Phase 2?
Joe, how did this, I'm sorry, I'm coming from behind on this. How did you pick the phases?
Oh, boy.
Well, I tried to come up with an incremental cost, and they're 2,000 feet long. That's what I came up with. And basically, the type of improvements that we need in those, it usually depends, it's 2 to 3 outfalls on South Sewell's Point. It also requires improvements in the upland areas, meaning up the streets from South Sewell's Point Road. And they were kind of a cost, they basically started with a cost.
I'm just talking septic to sewer.
Septic to sewer.
Yeah, how did you pick those phases?
Well, they kind of came from the report, but then we had to make some adjustments into the, what the county will let us build as far as low-pressure force mains, okay? And how many units they will let us serve by that system. And we have a grant that can pay for grinder systems, meaning low-pressure force mains, okay? And the way that is set up is basically low-pressure mains. And so the area that we tried to concentrate on is the areas along South Sewell's Point Road, because we're making improvements on South Sewell's Point Road by raising the road and drainage improvements. So that's the best time to get the sewer lines in place. Second of all, they are also the most low-lying area. So we wanted to make sure those septic tanks, because they will be impacted by, once we raise the road and provide all sorts of drainage improvements, they will be, the septic tanks will be impacted on how they operate. And so we pretty much put in we put in the low-pressure force mains initially. That's what our goal is, how I laid that out. And there are certain rules relative to, we have to put a sewer line down South Sewell's Point to serve all of the system, okay? Because what happens is, as you know, most of the flow, whether it's gravity or grinder, goes from the west side of the peninsula to the east side, right? Which would be in South Sewell's Point Road. And so therefore, we have to get that line in place to provide service for those systems, okay? So there's a few things that go into it, but the layout is to try to get the low-pressure force mains in place.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm only concerned, basically, okay, I get that now, right now. I'm only concerned about how do you pick who's going to get force assessed and who's not? How is that done?
Who gets what, assessed?
Force assessed. How are people going to get forced assessed?
There are no forced assessments.
We're not forcing anybody to be assessed. That's the deal.
But how do you pick that out if you're going to do a vacuum system?
We're not doing a vacuum system.
So even if you do the gravity system?
But if we do the gravity system, which we're hoping we don't have to do, but if we do have to do it, essentially, we're trying to put in a study out there right now. I mean, not a study, but basically trying to hear which people have the problems with their septic tanks currently. From that, we'll determine who needs the gravities first. So our goal is to get all the low pressure force mains in place, so those people have the ability to hook up if and when they need to. Relative to gravity, then we'll go to that system. We may or may not have enough money to do all the gravity at this point for the whole 706 units out there. We have made some application for trying to get more money, but at this point, we only have a certain amount of money right now.
I'm just curious about if there's going to be any assessments.
Our goal is not to have an assessment. That's what we've been,
And that was
that's why
the-
we chose the systems we did. If we went to something like and some of the numbers kind of move around a little bit, to be honest with you, as we tried to get it. As you know, we talked about an all grinder system, low pressure force main. Okay, the current grant would pay for all of the low pressure force mains, and then the people go and hook up, and with their money for hooking up is between, what, $8,000 to $12,000, as Frank said earlier. If they spend that much money, they'll be matching what we're putting in from the grant. So that works pretty well, okay? Unfortunately, the county said, no, you can't put in all 706 connections with low pressure mains. So then we had to go to the next option, which was, well, then we could put in some gravity mains. Now, just so you know, there are gravity mains out there that were built by developers. Some of them are, and most of them are in some sort of disrepair or another. So the intent would be that we would improve upon those and use the lines that are there after we improve them, of course. So that's, but again, which ones of those we hook up or fix up first will depend on the survey that's out there now and see where the people need the services most. It is our hope that, quite frankly, we can get the county to let us hook up all 706 connections, only because we know we can do that with the money we have now. And second of all, everybody be on the same system. But we're not certain we're going to get there. The county has not budged on their position that we have to stay no more than 340 connections.
So you're negotiating separately for those other than the 340? Anything over 340, you're actually negotiating separately, separate mutual agreement?
We haven't done that yet.
Okay, but that's what you plan, that's what the plan is, I guess. Am I right?
Well, I don't want to say what the plan is, because I think we're kind of waiting to see. First of all, let's get the first 160 connections, which are moving along pretty well, and see what kind of interest we have. We then have another 171 that go farther south of Phase 3 area, and then we'll see how that goes. And that gets most of the low-lying areas with low-pressure force mains.
Okay.
And then, of course, at that point, I'm sure, we're finding out as we're talking to residents that they have a need. And so the memo that's gone out now is to try to find out who needs these sewers. And if we have a need of a lot of people, I think we may want to make a different approach to the county and see if they'll let us go with the low-pressure mains. They're the ones getting the connections. They're the ones that, you would think would be interested in hooking these folks up. Obviously, that's been the intent of the commission, has been the intent of the state in giving us these grant funds, is to hook up people. And so if we can hook these people up, I think they're going to be a little hard pressed to tell us we can't use this type of system. But, I'm not going to, we're going to have to go with what they're the operator, right? Martin County Utilities. So we have to comply with them at this point. But we may have to convince them.
Nothing wrong with a little pushback.
What's that?
Nothing wrong with a little pushback.
No, that's
Well,
right. That's
in
exactly.
reality, though, too, just, they didn't think we'd be able to get a grant. They didn't think we'd be able to do the match the way that we were able to do. So we're showing them that through teamwork and, and the residents were able to move forward. So I think the important thing that we continue to do is stick with our mandates that, there's no mandatory hookup. Well, obviously, that's under the control of the state legislature. We all know, they can change things if they choose to, but right now, they've given that option to the Martin County Utilities, and Martin County Utilities has said that we will not force anybody to connect until their system fails, which is really a DEP proposition with the Department of Health. So that's where we are right now. The other aspect is there's no mandatory assessment. That was the mandate that this commission said. So, we don't have that. The money for the infrastructure is coming from the grant. So whereas in the county, that money comes from the residents. They have an assessment in the unincorporated area, and that assessment is paid to the county. Now, there's other things that they can do. They can, again, finance that debt and everything else. But that's what's happening on the county side. It doesn't translate here because we stood up, and not we, but this commission stood up and set forth that we were going to try to get grants to pay this. We were able to get a grant, and now it's just, getting the project done as much as we can get in the ground, and I think that's where we're at. And the other thing was making sure that we had an interlocal agreement. So, there's no mandatory hookup, there's no mandatory assessment, and we had to have the interlocal agreement with the county, which we will have, again, that we'll have to get for Part 2 when we go through, and that's the other 171.
Well, those are the grinder systems.
Yes.
So I'm not even talking about grinder system, I'm talking about the gravity system.
Well, and we know that's a possibility, you might have to do gravity, but right now, we want to be able to show that we're following through with everything that we said we could do.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so the next item on the list, I don't know if I explained Phase 3.
You started into it and then you got in.
Then you were interrupted.
That's okay. I didn't mean to say that. I meant to
Commissioners
say
are
that.
allowed to do that.
Basically, Phase 3, we've been talking about it for a couple of years. As you know, we bid it. I'm just trying to bring Vinnie up to speed. We bid the project.
I'm
It came in
up to
too
speed.
high.
Okay.
Yeah, and so essentially, now we believe we have the amount of money we need in place. But besides that, we have the design and permitting completed. We've done the CRAS, as most of you know. We're kind of monitoring some of the water main and sewer lines being built out there, which explained a little bit in 3B in a minute. The other thing is we have a canopy in this area, and obviously when we raise the road, we're going to impact some of the libs on that canopy. So we are trying to make sure we consider replacing any canopy that may be damaged or taken out. So our goal is to obviously maintain a canopy there. And we'll be meeting on Thursday night at 5 o'clock to talk with the residents about things that they would like, the various trees that we think that would make a nice canopy there. And we're not intentionally taking trees out. At this point, there may be some limbs that are being cut because we have to raise the road. But for the most part, we're going to be looking at what people would like to see. Oaks, there's about a variety, about 4 different types of trees that can provide a canopy that we'd like, and we'd like to get the opinion of the public about that. And we haven't made any decisions on it. We're just saying we want to hear from the public on that. So that's Thursday night.
Also, just not to interrupt you, but Michael Flaw is going to be here as well, who's the landscape architect that's also a resident.
So as I stated earlier, on just about every one of the projects, we need easements. And actually, your staff has done a great job of going out there and talking to the residents and getting easements. Just about every property out there along South Sewell's Point Road needs an easement. As you know, when we started the project, we limited the width of the improvement, which is basically road width of 10-foot lanes, 2 10-foot lanes, a 3-foot shoulder on either side, and then a valley gutter. Essentially, basically, that's 30 feet. So if we only have 30 feet there, we still got to put storm lines and everything adjacent to it. So the way this is working out between replacing water mains and adding sewer mains, we need about 50 feet. So we're getting 10-foot utility drainage and roadway improvement easements on either side of the road. So easements is a big part of what we have to do here, and we kind of lay that out in the beginning of the project, but for the most part, we don't get them until we show the people the improvements that are going in there, and that, of course, they want to make sure we don't impact their property with whether landscaping or whatever. This project has FEMA HMGP. It has funding from that. It has funding from DEP resiliency. Both of those sources they're working on giving us about 2 different amounts of money each. So those are looking pretty good. Unfortunately, it takes time for them to process them for the FEMA money, because it has to start with the FDEM, that's the Florida Department of Emergency Services, and then they make a recommendation to FEMA. So it kind of goes through 2 different departments, one state to the federal. But anyways, I just wanted you to know there are FEMA monies out there, there's resiliency money out there. And then we were hoping to bid it this month, but I'll be honest with you, because of we've been waiting on some information back from FEMA on their grants, which they're telling us they told us that everything, the grant amounts are good and we're going to get the money, but they need another month or 2 to get that all processed. So that pushes us back into May for bidding. And I could bid the project. The trouble is I don't want to bid the project and then find out that I got to wait 4 months, for example, because these bids normally have a shelf life, okay? So anyways, that's going to be bidding in the next couple months, and then we expect construction from June to March of 2025. And as you know, the Part B of the project, we separated the drainage and roadway improvements from the water and sewer improvements in that corridor, so we can, because they're being directional drilled underneath these lines. And so that's B here, and that's being done by Jamie Underground. That's the sewer company that's working for us out there. And they have put in most of the low-pressure force main lines already, okay? And that's in the Via Lucinda subdivision, in the Homewood subdivision, and along South Sewell's Point Road, okay? They put the lines in. They're still putting in sewer services, okay? So those items are still being put in. And right now, we are only building the sewer parts. It's a water and sewer contract. We're only putting in the sewers right now. And once we get the approval of FEMA for the money and so forth, then we will put in the water. Now, just so you know, that may sound a little crazy to you, but the reason it is we are using money for the water which is money that's coming from Martin County Utilities, as our match, okay? Because when you have a federal grant, you need some local funds to match it. So there's a method to our madness. It's not like we're just creating things. We can use that money as a match. So that's the reason why we are holding off on this, on building the water main. The contract is all set up, and to be honest with you, Jamie Underground would just as soon be doing that right now if he could, but we told him he has to wait. So anyways, relative to that source of funding, I mean, we're again, it looks like phase 3, we're on our way. Again, we're just waiting on FEMA to say, yes, you can go forward with this. And we learned a few things on this project a little bit, besides prices going up because of pandemic and so forth, but also we have 2 sources of federal funds here. We can't match one with the other, and they have to be separated. We've had to do that. There's numerous items that have to be done for that. And I can see the mayor's getting tired of listening to Joe Capper talk.
No, I don't think the commission or the general public understand the difficulty in obtaining these funds and matching them, and it's a real jigsaw puzzle, and we appreciate how difficult it is, at least I do.
Thank you. So it's like I said, good news is we're getting everything put together, and it's moving forward, and we've been getting help from the different agencies.
Let me interrupt you because Vice Mayor Fender has a question.
Yeah, we're talking about financing a little bit. It's been a while since I've seen a cash flow management plan on this. We're getting close to phase 3. That's right? Phase 3. Yep. And it seems like it's about to go into construction. I just worried about looking at in the future on how we're funding it. I know we have grants, but then they have to arrive at a certain time. So do we have a plan in place to ensure that the funds are available to get the project done?
Yes, and
Over quarters?
you'll see some of that more as we get into the capital improvement projects, starting at the next meeting. So we'll have those. I kind of wanted to do the kickoff with, the overview of the projects, and as we narrow down that focus, and of course, going out to bid is going to help us a lot in knowing what that amount is as we go through phase 3. But yes, we do have a plan. That's why, when we start talking about start dates and completion dates, we're sitting pretty good with phase 3, but phase 2, obviously I want to get that done too, because we've been promising the residents there, but we also have to make sure that cash flow process works.
Right.
So, believe me, we'll be coming back to you if we see that, there's a situation where we might have to delay just to keep the cash flow situation at bay.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
The next one is South Sewell's Point Road Phase 4. That's the area between Town Hall, pretty much down to, I guess that's going to be Ridgeland Drive. That area of the road obviously will be raising also and doing stormwater improvements. At this point, the only thing that we have put in place there is the sewer main, okay? Because as you know, the master sewer line has to connect to the active force main at the corner here, and that's been installed. So even though we're not doing drainage improvements in that section yet, we have been working in that section. We also have a concept plan that we produced, and we do have we know we have to go get FEMA and resiliency funds for that, and we will be pursuing them next. Obviously, we're trying to make sure we show FEMA and DEP that we are accomplishing what we're spending the money for. And so we'll get phase 3 done, we'll do phase 2, and then we'll get phase 4 going. But we do have to go apply for those grants, which we haven't done yet. But I did want you to understand that we did go get easements along that section so that we have them in place whenever the stormwater money becomes available. So that's what's being done there. Okay, so that's phase 4. The next one is North Sewell's Point Road. This is one that we will be working with Martin County and we've spoken to them on numerous occasions. This is the program that we're proposing is that we build and raise the road all the way from A1A all the way to the north town limits. So that's about 7,800 feet. That's the longest phase of projects that we'd be doing, and so we felt that would be, if we need quite a bit of money for that. Okay, so we've been making we're proposing the same type of improvements that we're doing South Sewell's Point, and we've come up with cost estimates and we've come up with concept plans, and so it's pretty expensive, and at the same time, besides it's expensive, we know we need to go get grants. So we have one FEMA grant that allows us to start the program of design, okay? And ultimately, the way the FEMA grants work, you do the design work, you get it approved, and then you tell them how much money you need for construction, okay? So that grant has a lifetime on it of, basically, these FEMA grants are mitigation money, which means a storm hits, that money, the government puts out some money for us for mitigation, and so that one ends at the end of, I think, 2026 right now. So we obviously have the ability to use that money and go forward with this, but we have never planned on doing that by ourselves. We expect Martin County to help us with this project. We pursued the grant, and so, to make a long story short, we've approached the county administrator. He's agreed that he will put this in front of his board as a CIP, capital improvement project. So with that, then they can spend money on it. And so the intention is to do what I'll call as the first phase of design. And what that means is we come up with a plan, we determine how much land we need, any easements, any stormwater retrofit areas that we need to put in place. So we need money for that. We need to lay that out. Second thing is we need money, so we need to go after a substantial number of grants for that. And really, so we need securing grants. We need to get the design to a certain level to do that and get permits in place and easements. So that's the purpose of working with the county in a CIP. Currently, he's going to propose to his board, and certainly before we go to that board, you'll know when that's going to be. He's going to propose to his board that we equally share in the design of the project. He has not committed yet to equally share in the construction costs. So that's something we have time to determine.
Question?
Yeah, I don't think we should do anything with Martin County. They own the road. I mean, you're talking $26 million, you're talking grants, and everything is wonderful, but they still own the road. And we shouldn't put 25% at best. They should be doing 75%. It's their road. Let them worry about the easement, let them worry about all of that. I mean, I saw what happened last time when you raised the road. It flooded out people's backyards. I mean, it was terrible. And I expect the same thing will happen again if you raise the road more. And I just feel that it's their road. You can fight that all you want, it still belongs to them.
Well, you can never tell. There may be maybe a position to do some horse trading on some other items. That's the way these things work. It's hard to, I don't think you want to, get the county mad at us because we do,
County's already mad at us.
well, but I'm saying that there's still some cooperation that's required for, the water lines and that kind of thing. So I think we need to tread lightly, that's all.
Well, when was the last time those sewer lines were cleaned out? I can't remember anybody cleaning out those sewer lines that run down North Sewell's Point Road.
Okay, they have certain pipes out there that they do clean. First of all, we clean ours out every year, right? Once a year at least.
Right.
Which are the ones that we put in place or we've been maintaining. And they do go out there and, I can't tell you every time they go out there, to be honest with you, but they do go out there and clean theirs on occasion. I know there's a repair that they just made, that one, that was their pipe that crossed the road, and they had a breach in that pipe, so they had to fix that. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. It's just, we have to start somewhere, because that road's flooding just as bad as South Sewell's Point, and our residents are feeling the
Well, they wouldn't
results.
even put swales in. They wouldn't even clean out the swales.
What's that?
They wouldn't even clean out the swales to help with that flooding.
So we are,
Leave it at that.
what's that?
I'll leave it at that.
I mean, like I said, I welcome all of you to go talk to your county commissioners and try to persuade them that they need to put a bigger amount of money into this. But I want you to understand the design, just so you do know. We are putting in improvements for North Sewell's Point Road that would be raising the road and drainage improvements. And when I say we are laying that out. And in order for this to work, we have to keep water from getting from the west side of the peninsula into the east side of the peninsula, just like we're doing in South Sewell's Point. So those improvements are going to be done in our streets, okay? There's a benefit to their road, so that's an argument you can make. But the fact that we are doing drainage improvements in our roads for our residents too. So, and again, I'm not trying to talk you out of that it should be a 75-25 split. I'm just trying to tell you, make sure you understand the design I'm talking about, so when they do challenge you on it, you can say, well, this is what we're doing, and by the way, that's actually helping you by letting our people put drainage on in our roadway system.
We do a traffic study on North Sewell's Point Road.
I can do one if you'd like one. I've not done a traffic study on it now.
I'm just curious because I know traffic has increased tremendously.
Yeah. I mean, we've gone through different scenarios with it, as you know.
Yeah.
You know, whenever the Roosevelt Bridge is down, they come this way. There's all sorts of, and it's a collector, I mean, it's a minor arterial. And as you know from the MPO, I mean, there's a responsibility there. We've looked at even getting federal DOT funds for it. Well, you can go do that, but as you know, that's a 7 to 15-year program. So, I mean, there's reasons for it, but the point is, we're trying to get it off center where we get some improvements and relief there. That's all I'm telling you. So, at this point, it's really up to us giving the counties information, and then they put it on their CIP. If you don't want us to do that, just tell me, and I can stop on not doing that. But they want the information, is what they want, so. So that's North Sewell's Point Road. Any other questions on that?
Sorry. Joe, go ahead.
Okay. So the next one is septic to sewer, and I mean, I've been talking about parts of it. I think Commissioner Brill asked about it, so I don't know if I need to go through each one of these. Pretty much, there's a survey out there that hopefully everybody will participate in. Phase 1, we've already talked about the Jamie Underground contract. That's for 169 connections, and all the main lines are in for that. That gets us from here all the way down to Rio Vista. The next phase is to go from there south all the way to High Point and most of High Point, and that's another 171 connections, so that's the 340 connections. And then the question, we hope to have that permitted by June of this year, and the purpose of that is maybe we can just continue with Jamie Underground to build those low-pressure force mains down there. So that still needs to be discussed with the grant agencies and so forth. So August to February of 2025, we could actually have the lines in for the additional 171 connections down there. And so then the next part is what you asked about, was gravity. If we decide to get into the gravity design, it'll be July to October, 366 connections, bid in October, construction February. I basically put a year in there. As you know, we do the gravities lines. We're going to be tearing up a lot of roads, and there'll be a lot more impact to the residents in doing that process. So, and last but not least, is commercial town hall septic to sewer, as most of you know, is complete. And at this point, we're just, the town has, as you know, set up and did the project, and we're getting some reimbursement from of funds from our adjacent neighbors. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Just have one quick one. Have we heard anything more about natural gas?
I have not.
I haven't gotten a response back yet either from them. So other than the fact that they were presenting to their leadership, their new leadership, the proposal, so.
Okay.
I have a line on my Phase 3 plans because I have to anticipate that they're going to come and do something, and I labeled a location for them, but I really need to know what they're going to do, so.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item 13B, Heritage Lot Update. Ms. Bashir?
Hello, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, everyone, Commissioners. It's now been 4.5 months since the property has been on the market. I have done 2 main campaigns, a lot to builders, because I still think it's a builder who should purchase this. I think the numbers make sense. I haven't gotten any offers. I have one builder that I'm dealing with right now in Broward County. I'm trying to convince him. He's built some beautiful houses. The numbers work. So unfortunately, no offers. There are 2 other lots for sale, just, it's comparable. I just wanted to let you know, the one on Mandolin that's over half an acre, they're asking $850,000 for that one, and one on Lucinda that has a house, and they're also offering the lot next to it, which is 15,000 square feet, and they're asking $700,000 for that one. So, I mean, in a way it's good because you have 3 lots, so it brings attention to all of us, and 7 Heritage is the best priced, of the 3. I'm not ready yet to ask for a reduction of the asking price. I'd like to just give me 1 more month, and I might come back in 4 weeks and then ask. I just want to do 1 more campaign and just kind of push this one builder that I'm in conversations with to see if he'll finally get an offer, even if it's, see what he'll give us. But I think, it's just the market is a little slow right now. Interest rates are still high. I think people are waiting for interest rates to drop later this year. I don't have a magic ball. Lots always take a little longer to sell because they do. It's a certain type of buyer. So I still very much believe in the lot. I don't know. I mean, if you have any questions, but I'm doing my best in trying to market. I have only done 2 major campaigns. I'm going to do 1 more. And circle back to some of the builders, and so that's the update. So
any questions? I think it's a little too early to think about reducing the price.
I agree with you. Let me just keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that brings us down to item 14, commission and staff closing comments. Mr. Daniels.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As was mentioned, we are having a discussion on the canopy with Mr. Flaw and with Joe on Thursday at 5 o'clock. And we are hoping to have that broadcast later on our YouTube channel. So we're working that out with Tom, and so I think that'll be some good dialogue, and then they can take that information, and if somebody can't make the meeting, they can even email in some ideas if they have on the canopy. But our whole thing is we want to improve the canopy, and, you know, maybe be a guide for what we want to do for the remainder of South Sewell's Point or North Sewell's Point, because we'll have that opportunity as we go in and do the work in North Sewell's Point. Another date that I want to make sure everybody's aware of, our first official Arbor Days celebration that I'm aware of. I think we've probably had a couple of them in the past, but we hope to make this an annual event, is our Arbor Day tree giveaway. And we are taking some funding. We looked at grants, and, you know, our needs didn't fit the grants that were available at the time. So we're taking some money from our tree fund and to purchase 150 trees of different types. And it'll be for residents only. And we'll be sending out all the details probably towards the end of the week. But it's set up for April 27th at Lantana Park. And basically, you know, the residents can drive through. We can load up the tree in the car and with, you know, planting instructions or any other assistance that we can, because we want to make sure that it's the right tree in the right area. Obviously taking into account the power lines and so forth. But I think it's real good. And then, you know, we're kind of look at doing a tree giveaway every other year, and then the years that we don't, doing the educational piece like we did last year with having the arborist walk us through the proper pruning techniques and how to plant a tree so it grows most effectively. So I think a lot of that all fits in. Also, our master clerk has been following up and actually obtained our new seals for 32 years of being a tree city. So I appreciate the work that she's done and everybody has done. And did I miss anything, staff? I think I've, pardon me? We have another egg hunt? Yes.
With trees.
As you know, community events, and I really get excited about them because, you know, we do have some differences. Every community has that. But when you can have an event like the egg hunt that we have every year, and you see different generations, and I had an opportunity it was the last Friday of the month, and we had an opportunity to talk to some of the adults and children, obviously, that were there. And I think we've got the video up on YouTube now, or it should be up there shortly. But it's the thing is all the smiles that you have, you know, and yeah, we might all have, you know, problems in our lives, but having a community event like that, and I talked to some of the parents, and they remember being there as children doing the egg hunt, and now that their children are, you know, away at college or moved on with their own families, they're coming and enjoying it at the same time. But they do it for the camaraderie with the rest of the community. And I think anything that we can do to have events that brings the community together, where for at least a day we can forget our differences and bring neighbor to neighbor together, I think is very strong and helpful for a community, not only now but also in the future, because our kids see that activity going on, and they'll push for it in the future as well. So I want to thank Tina and the staff and our police department for coordinating that effort, and we we look forward to doing that year after year and add items and community events where we can. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, any comments from the commissioners? Vice Mayor Fender?
I do. I actually have four. First, thanks, Chief, for bringing up the egg hunt, the easy one first. Thanks for all you do for the community and also the staff that made that event possible. I showed up late, but I made a point to stop by, and I couldn't have said it better myself. The things that we do to bring the community together are super important, so thanks for driving that and keeping it alive. More serious topics, the three things I really want to talk about before that topic came up was, first, quickly, the meeting process, then a little bit about the tree process, which might be a longer conversation, and then I want to also talk a little bit more about 10 Oakwood Drive. So first of all, the meeting process, just want to make a quick comment because it was a little chaotic today. I want to make sure it's super clear that we really want community input. We want you to have your voice and participate, but the raising hand process doesn't work in this venue. So the process, which wasn't really followed this time, is if you want to speak, grab a comment card, put your name and address on it, give it to the clerk, and even in midstream, you mentioned beforehand, that kind of put a damper on it, we do want to hear your comments. And so we bent a little bit today and allowed you, it was a little, we didn't follow the process cleanly. So I just want to stipulate there is a process, and even if you articulate a different way than I did, we just do need to follow the process, not for today, which is a relatively small crowd, but sometimes it gets way out of hand, especially when we don't always agree on topics. But the issue is that we don't want to stop your ability to communicate. We want to provide a process that allows everyone to communicate properly. So I just want to make sure it wasn't misunderstood what happened early in this meeting about the hand raising and the not communicating. We absolutely do want you to talk. We want you to come to the podium. We just want you to submit the card with your name and your address on it and follow the process. Enough about that. Tree process. There was some talk earlier this week, and the mayor brought up that our neighbor Susan, I'll mess up her last name.
Krepitz, I think.
Say it?
I think it's Krepitz.
Krepitz has been actually texting me over the last few days about her concern, and I raised it at the last meeting, about a 200-year-old oak tree that was felled in her neighborhood. She was very upset about it, and I pushed her to come to the meeting, last meeting, and spend her time in the dais to allow us to place a face with the name of her concern about this particular 250-year-old tree, I guess. She wasn't comfortable doing that, and she had some conflicts with work, so she wrote the document that she emailed to all of us that you referenced. And interestingly enough, and I pushed her to come today again and back up her document. But she felt more comfortable with her written word than her verbal speaking ability. And I did notice when I received her well-written document that it almost mirrors the document that arose after the several oak trees were cut down on 10 Oakwood Drive. And she has great points of what we should do to try to mitigate those things. And one of those references is a mitigation plan in the ordinance. So she'll be pleased to hear, and I haven't spoken to her since I saw the document, that we've already implemented some of the things that she's requested. But the fact remains is that we do need, to your point, Commissioner Kurzman, that we need to stay on our tree issue. Maybe the Saturday issue was, not well received, but we have things in place and we should continue to be diligent about it. The Arbor Day suggestion's a great one. The positive incentive to incent community members to support their trees in the community and protect our canopy is important. But I'll follow back up with Susan, I'll say, because I can't say the last name, and introduce her to the gentleman who wrote the other article with several ideas and see if they can put their heads together and keep pushing that idea forward, including your idea of a community committee about doing that, which is an excellent idea.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think, from time to time, we may bang up against the state requirements, but, okay, so we bang up against them.
Exactly.
If if somebody doesn't like that, they can certainly,
That's exactly right.
I mean, I don't want to, I don't want Sewell's Point leading the way in some major lawsuit that
No.
we're not going to pay for. But I think it's reasonable. We can push it as far as we want, that's all.
Mayor, if I may, before we move on with your last subject you want to speak about, that is going to be a topic that we'll be discussing at the meeting, our next meeting, that's the 10 Oakwood. So I think in all fairness, to keep your mind open to hearing what needs to be said, they'll basically be coming in front of this commission because they want to mitigate the amount of money that they will need to pay because they could not put in the number of trees that they had promised that they were going to do originally. So, Jack and I have, worked with them, the owner, the builder, and we're at a point where they have made an offer, which I'll be presenting in writing to you all ahead of time for the meeting. But I think in all fairness to anybody coming before us, and I know we feel real strongly about trees, they understand that as well, but I don't want you to say anything that might tend somebody to believe that you are not in favor of being open to hearing their consideration. So, again, I don't want to stop you from saying anything, but I do want to just put that out.
Stated comment, thank you. I raised to the building official today, and I'll take your cue on that, because I'm glad to hear that they're coming before us next week to try to mitigate the issue, which is a serious issue, and probably the neighbors would be interested in their mitigation of that situation, as far as the trees are concerned. I wasn't raising the issue necessarily about trees on 10 Oakwood. I'm raising the issue about permeability. And you tell me how far I can go, but I'm concerned that the ordinance is not being followed as far as the spirit of the way our ordinance was written, which Jack did educate me on today, which I think is pretty crystal clear, that 65% of a property lot that is being built upon needs to be with permeable material. I consider that to be grass and permeable pavers or whatever's there. And 45%, the other part of the lot, can be things that are impermeable, like houses, pools, and I would say in some cases driveways that are not permeable. So in addition to the tree issues we have at 10 Oakwood, we now seem to have a permeability issue where this structure wasn't built according to the character of the community, and certainly the spirit of the ordinance of green space on the peninsula. And some of that green space is indeed a tree concept. So I'm, by the way, totally open to a mitigation concept. In fact, when this particular property became so aware to the community, that's when we started the mitigation discussion of making sure our mitigation plans were properly codified. So I'm super excited to hear that the builder and maybe the owner are coming to help us understand what their mitigation plan is next week, and I'm totally open to hearing it. But I am concerned that that maybe that property is not properly, I don't even know the word I'm using, trying to say is structured according to permeability on our zoning. And by the way, I don't know the ramification of that either, by the way.
I agree, and my discussions with Jack is, as the final inspections come forward, there has to be a survey that addresses that to meet the satisfaction of the building official. Now, there are some exceptions in our ordinance which we might want to address in the future, and one of them deals with the use of pavers and sand as, being permeable. So, but if that's, I understand too, because I've seen driveways that act the same as concrete, and it's the fact that they use a different type of sand instead of the sand that's meant to be used. And, Jack and I have gone over that, but it is a gray area that's in the ordinance that we might want to clarify. It probably won't help us with this particular property, but those are things that we're looking at, to be quite honest with you, and we do want to adhere those principles in the ordinance to make sure. Sometimes the spirit of what was meant when it was passed could be different. That's why you have to look at the written word, and I'll ask Susan to take a look at that as well.
So just one comment about that, and I looked at both of those clauses today, and I've lived here for 22 years, and on all the building projects I've been exposed to or participated in over those years, it has always been pretty clear to me that and I'm going to say 45, 65, but
55, 45.
whatever it is, is it 55?
We need to add up to
Yes. Thanks for helping me with my math. But whatever the percentage
Yes.
is, it has always been super clear to me in those that it couldn't be violated. And so one clause supersedes the other clause. And the fact of permeability on sand, the sand is permeable. But if you put a paver on top of it that is not a permeable paver, it's not permeable anymore. But you can put a permeable paver on it and it would be fine. I don't think that's what's happened here, by the way. And we can argue the nuance of that, but let's clarify it so it's never.
I don't argue anything, I'm just saying, that's one of the things we're looking for, so.
I'm just telling you
right.
that if there was a debate to be made, the fact that you put a non-permeable paver on top of a percentage that is supposed to be permeable doesn't give you a loophole, is what I'm saying. That you don't have a very strong argument to be made, in my opinion.
Let me ask a question. Why is this coming to the commission? Is it some kind of variance request, or?
No, because it's a negotiation to mitigate the excess trees.
So they're asking for a variance for what their mitigation plan was, right?
Well, I guess you could
I
term.
assume they're going to give us a proposal.
That's,
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, I'm sure, things come up all the time where they're building something and maybe a little bit outside of what their permit allows for, and they may ask for a variance request. Do we see all variance requests?
no.
So I'm wondering, other than,
I don't think this is a variance request.
well, then what are we talking about? I mean, if they
It's
have.
a disagreement between what we feel the fine should be and what they feel the fine should be. And so, I can't resolve that. I think the only people that can are the commission, but maybe, Susan, can you weigh in on that? Should this go to a variance request, or should it be, because, when we calculate it out, we don't have any trees to look at. The trees were already destroyed and carted off and buried or whatever, so we couldn't take calculations to see how, what the diameter of all the trees were that were
But we
removed.
put together a mitigation plan. They have a
They put
mitigation.
together a mitigation plan.
Okay, and we approved that mitigation plan?
We have not.
And, well, we approved the plan as written, but they haven't followed it. They can't put as many trees on as they're supposed to. So they've offered to pay to the tree fund an amount of money that is probably more than half as much as what we calculated out as being.
There's a disagreement on what is an appropriate mitigation, I think.
Okay, and I'm not, I guess I don't understand exactly why we're looking at that unless it's.
Who should?
Well, I don't know. The building official, I think, should make that judgment. Either they have met their mitigation plan or they haven't. And if they haven't, here's what it's going to cost you.
I think they disagree. I think the building official and the landowner are not in agreement, so they need to go to a higher authority to.
Okay, and so it sounds to me that it's a variance request they're asking for. If they can't meet their mitigation plan, it's a variance to the mitigation plan. And that, I understand why we'd be looking at.
Okay, let's say that you're right, and I don't think you are, but let's say you are. What if the variance is denied? Then what?
Then they either pay a fine or they have to meet their
Pay
mitigation
what
plan.
fine? That's the disagreement.
Well,
They're not agreeing on what fine to pay, assuming the variance were disagreed.
Okay, and and I'm asking.
I think it's up to us, is
I'm
what I'm
asking,
telling you.
okay, I'm asking the question. I mean, if Jack decides that there's a certain fine, and we say, yeah, it's okay, and then they can take it to court if they don't like it, kind of thing.
I guess, yeah. I mean, isn't that always the case?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And I was wondering what made this a little bit different, and I wasn't sure. That's all.
By the way, I just heard of this today, by the way, just,
Okay.
it's not something I've been finding.
I would have to have a better understanding of the procedural history of how this came up in the first place, so probably, I would suggest that we have a discussion about it offline and try to sort out where we are procedurally and
Okay.
where it
It
should be
would
going.
probably be less of an issue had it not been, had it only been the first infraction, but this is the secondary, you know, so there are multiple issues here.
Yes, and we were assured the last time that they would do everything they could to meet their mitigation plan, which sounds like they haven't done.
That seems like a good assessment, yeah.
Okay. Anything else? I just had one quick item. I was wondering when we were going to start to look at or discuss the stormwater utility or the stormwater charges. I think that's an important issue that we haven't gotten to yet. And
That'll be coming at the next meeting, too.
Okay.
So we've been studying that situation.
all right, very good. Any other?
And just for the record, the next meeting is the 23rd, not next week. I misstated and I said next week. I didn't mean that. It'll be on the 23rd, 2 weeks.
Unless Kaya wants to have a meeting next week.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
Jack?
Okay. Any other comments? If not, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much.